This webinar. Good afternoon if you're in New South Wales and Victoria and South Australia. And good morning if you're in Queensland, and probably South Australia is still morning, and obviously Western Australia is morning. Welcome to this webinar on ESS Biz Grants. If you have any questions during the webinar, can you please raise your hand, and after having typed in the question, of course, and I will answer the questions later in the webinar presentation. Today we're going to look at grants. In a nutshell, grants are big. Approximately $5 billion per annum is made available in grants, assistance, and special loans to businesses from the federal government, state governments, and territory governments. All taxpayers contribute to this funding, this $5 billion. The taxpayers pay for it. The key question for accountants and advisors to answer, I believe, are your clients receiving their fair share of these grants, special assistance, and special loans that have been made available by governments? From the reports that I get back from small medium enterprises, many of them would claim they're not receiving their fair share because in many instances they claim that they're not aware of the grants. But more about that later. This afternoon or this morning we're going to look at one of the grants, Industry Skills Fund, which was introduced earlier this year. Now this is deliberately targeted at SMEs. Support that's available, first of all, is for training grants to improve the skills that the business can use to improve its performance. So it's not a grant to teach someone to type. It's not a grant to teach someone bookkeeping type services. It's got to be something that the government agency considers will improve the skills of the individual persons involved so that they can use that to improve performance of the business. And there's also skills advice available from experienced mentors, coaches that the government has engaged to deliver the skills development program. They can go into a business and give a detailed evaluation of the skills improvements that can be implemented. That's a free service, and many businesses have benefited around Australia from that input from these experienced mentors, consultants, to assist SMEs in particular to develop a greater awareness of skills development within their business. So let's look at what the contribution is from the government. The government has budgeted a substantial amount of money for this program. For micro businesses, and that's businesses with 0 to 4 full-time employees, so it could just be the owner-operator. The grant is 75%, but if the businesses are situated in Northern Australia, which is generally defined as the area north of the Tropic of Capricorn, which runs through the city of Rockhampton in Queensland, right across to Western Australia. Businesses situated in Northern Australia are able to get an additional grant for most of these categories, and that funding is being paid out of the special $5 billion that has been allocated by the federal government for Northern Australia development. For businesses that are small businesses, and for this purpose, small is defined as 5 to 19 full-time equivalents. In most of Australia at 66%, but in Northern Australia, the government's contribution is 75%. Medium businesses up to 199 employees, 50% and 75%. And for large businesses, 25% and 50%, depending on where the business is located. So you can see there's some substantial government grants available. The business's own contribution is obviously the difference, 25%, 34%, etc. But it must be paid in cash. It's not an in-kind basis. Let's look at the eligibility. Businesses of any type. Now, until the beginning of September, this grant was only targeted at companies and corporate trustees of trusts. It's now been widened to cover basically all types of businesses, subject to the business having an Australian business number and being registered for GST, and has operated and filed business activity statements for the last 3 years. So if you've got clients that obviously meet those criteria, they're eligible to apply as long as they can identify the skills that they need and are able to articulate how those skills are going to improve the business's performance. Consortiums can apply if they wish, and there are some specific rules for consortiums. Now, learner eligibility, because these are the students. The learner is not able to re-register for a specific training course that they've already undertaken. They must be permanent residents of Australia, or if they're New Zealand passport holders, they must have worked in Australia for the last 6 months. And they've got to be of the legal working age. And if there are specific training prerequisites for any particular program, they have to satisfy those. So that could mean that they're already expected to have certain qualifications or trade accreditations before they can undertake a more advanced training program or skills development program. So that's basically the eligibility requirements for the learners. Now, there are some priority industries. If you've been following what's happening in the grant space, the government has introduced this concept of priority industries. This program is deliberately targeted at the priority industries, but if you have clients outside of the priority industries, I'll talk about that a little bit later. So the priority industries include advanced manufacturing, food and agribusiness, medical technologies and pharmaceuticals, mining equipment, technology and services, oil, gas and energy resources. Now, they're the 5 prime priority industries, but in addition, businesses which supply enabling technologies to those 5 prime priority industries that are drawn from businesses operating in freight and logistics, infrastructure-related construction, ICT, and professional services. And the reason I put scientific in brackets is so you don't get too excited and think that accountants can get some of this. It's primarily targeted at professional services in the scientific area. Now, when you look at that, you might say that's only 9 industries, but those 9 industries, when you go through and start analysing the business classifications in accordance with the ATO and the Bureau of Statistics, there's over 550 different types of businesses fall into those 9 industry classifications. Indeed, it's not too difficult to imagine that virtually every type of trade would fit into infrastructure-related construction or advanced manufacturing and perhaps into mining equipment, technology and services. The key thing with these enabling technologies is that they either work for businesses in the 5 prime priority areas, or they are intending to do some work for one of those 5 prime priority industries. So it's fairly wide as to the eligibility criteria. Now, applicants that don't fall within the priority areas are still able to apply. However, they need to clearly identify in their application that their business has significant growth potential and they are prepared to reposition themselves to take advantage of economic opportunities. When you look at some of the pronouncements made by the minister, it's obvious that the government's hoping that these significant growth potentials for businesses will come from exporting activities, but it could come from other activities. So just because your clients are not in one of those 9 industries, don't be put off because of that. They could still be eligible to apply, just that they need to be able to mount their case. Similar to most government grants, businesses need to satisfy a merit criteria. And the merit criteria for this one has 5 components. There needs to be a growth opportunity. So the business needs to have articulated what they believe the growth opportunity in their business is and why they're going to benefit from undertaking this skills training. This is not training for training's sake. It is training that is going to develop new skills that the business will be able to utilize within the business. Productivity. The business in the application needs to be able to clearly indicate that they believe that from this skills development, they will be able to improve sales and their general business performance. And they will need to state that and give some indication as to where those new customers are going to come from. And whilst it might seem obvious, there needs to be a link between what the growth opportunity is and the business opportunity by undertaking the training. Why would you do it? And you need to satisfy the government's agency that there will be value for money from this operation. So if you're putting a quote in and the service provider is going to charge $1,000 per hour, you would need to really be able to supply some compelling reasons why the government should be paying 75 or 66 or 50% of that amount. What's the value for money? Obviously, if you're submitting proposals that are far cheaper, something may be costing $150, $200 per hour, it's a little bit easier to argue the value for money proposition. And in most government grants these days, the government is concerned that the applicant has got the capability and the capacity to manage a grant program, to ensure that this all happens, to ensure that appropriate contracts will be let with service providers and that they will be able to supervise the work performance and to submit the reports that are required to the government to prove that the work has been satisfactorily undertaken. So that's what's required for this particular grant on the Industry Skills Fund. A couple other things I should stress on this. You've probably gathered from what I've said, the work has to be undertaken by an external organisation to the business. So it's not funding going to your client to spend in-house, as it were. they need to have contracted it out to an external organisation or service provider. Some of that work could be undertaken by accountants, depending on what the skill that has been identified is. And there needs to be a direct link between the skill development and what is going to happen in the business. Now you can apply for a range of skills. Your client is not restricted to one. So I've had some experience working with one of the coaches, mentors for the skills development program recently, and the report that he submitted to our client has listed a range of skill development activities that are covering the directors. So there's support for the concept that one of the directors can attend the Australian Institute of Company Directors diploma course. That costs in the vicinity of $9,000 to $10,000 to attend. There's support for some specific agricultural training being undertaken by a couple of the other directors. This business is involved in an agricultural pursuit. There's support for the concept that the office staff will be appropriately trained in some further programs of MYOB. The business is upgrading its ability to maintain an appropriate accounting system. And there's some support for the concept of funding being made available for some corporate governance training and procedure board of directors meeting training for the directors. So that might give you some idea of the type of training program that is being supported. And I want to emphasize that it's not restricted to just one skill development within an organization. It can cover a number of them, and you can talk to your clients about that and get them to understand what they can apply for. Another work process that accountants might be able to undertake in this area is doing some mentoring on some of those areas, as long as you've got the skills and experience to be able to do that. For argument's sake, the director that's going to attend a company director's course, there is some mentoring funding available when he returns from that diploma course to ensure that what has been discussed at the company director's diploma course can then be implemented within the business. So I would recommend to you that you have a good look at the Industry Skills Fund to give you a better appreciation of how that fund works. And we will send to you a copy of a paper that our associated business ESS BIZTOOLS has produced on the Industry Skills Fund when we send you the link for the recording that we're making of this webinar today. So you'll be able to go on and have a look. If you have any questions, can you please type the question in? I'm just going to check whether there's any questions at this stage. There's none. But if you have a question, please type the question into your computer and raise your hand, and I will answer the questions a little bit later on in the webinar. What I'm now doing is going to the ESS Biz Grants website, and we're just going to have a look at a couple of the key areas of the site. I'm going to a client profile, and I'm going to work on one that I've used a couple of weeks ago in another demonstration, so I'll just bring this up. Just bear with me a moment while I just get back to the beginning. This will give you an overview of how ESS Biz Grants operates. We've already started this, as I said, and we've called the business ABC Sheet Metal Industries Proprietary Limited. The key thing you have to then do is to identify the entity type so that the system can work. We've identified that this applicant is a company, but it could have been one of these other types of entities. Just bear in mind that companies are the most popular entities for government grants. I cannot think of a grant that doesn't apply to a company, but a number of grants do not apply to these other types of entities. We've asked the question, does the business export? Does the business import? And we've answered yes in both cases. Number of employees is very important. I should have explained to you this hypothetical company has got 25 employees. So we have indicated that's in the 20 to 200 band of employees, but it could have been nil or it could have been one of the others. There are some grants that only apply at various numbers of employees. The question then is, do you have an ABN? Well, we've answered yes, the business does. Businesses need an ABN to apply for a government grant. The next question is, how many years has the business been operating? The various grants make a distinction between a business that's starting up, so that's obviously nil, then under 2 years and 2 to 3 years and over 3 years. You'll recall in the Industry Skills Fund that we looked at a moment ago, it was talking about over 3 years. There's not that many grants for startups anymore. The next question is turnover. This hypothetical business has got a turnover of about $5 million. And these are the various bands on turnover that are mentioned in the various grants. We've decided this is in the band of $1.5 million to $20 million. Are you registered for GST? The business needs to be registered, so we've answered yes. Are you tax exempt? No, this is a tax-paying company. If you answer yes to this, you won't be shown any grants because ESS Biz Grants is targeted at businesses, not at not-for-profits or charities. And are you involved in research and development? Now, we haven't asked whether they spend $20,000, and that question doesn't really ask whether the applicant's a company, even though by this stage we know that. It's just to alert us to the potential that this business, if they're doing R&D, might be eligible for some of the other grants that really would require research and development to have been undertaken if you are going to lodge an application. So we'll save that. And what we've gone through to now is we can look at the details again of this business. And there they are. We can check the address. Now, I put the address in the other day. I put it in as Leichhardt, New South Wales, and entered the postcode. The system told me that Leichhardt's in a major city of Australia. And obviously it is. It's in Sydney. And we've just confirmed the turnovers. The next area is the business industry code. Now, if you know the code, and in this case, the one we've used is 22400, you could insert that number. These are from the ATO business industry codes. If you knew a keyword on the code, you could insert the keyword. And we've already done that, and it's shown us that this particular business, which was to do with sheet metal production, is 22400, and that's the one that has been utilised. And we can hit search grants, but you could have changed that. You could have looked at a range of other, you could have more than one code if you had a client that was involved in a number of different ATO business industry codes. What we have here is pending grants. Now, this is a business that we've already done some work on. So we already have some potentially eligible grants. We got 3 of them. So we've already identified accelerating commercialisation, business growth grant, and Industry Skills Fund. We'll go back to pending and just pick out one or two others. Now, there's a number of apprenticeship grants that are available. In New South Wales, there's some New South Wales government programs, a bin trim rebate. And the one we might pick on is just to show you another, is the Export Market Development Grant, but I'll just take you through so you can see some of the other grants that have come up. Some of these are virtually duplicated because there's a grey area between some of these industries. So you could have a business that's might be eligible under advanced manufacturing or mining equipment. You only get it once, so you can't make an application for more than one category. It would give you an idea. If we go back to Export Market Development Grant, when you click on, you get a summary of what the grant's about. Now, if you've got any people that have undertaken Export Market Development Grant, you have to submit the application by 2 weeks today, actually, by the 30th of November. You can check the funding. It's from $7,500 to $150,000, and you receive 50% of the eligible expenditure above $15,000. Eligible expenditure for export marketing activities doesn't include New Zealand, North Korea, or Iran. We can go to what we call our Toolkit, whereby you can read a paper on this particular grant, which obviously is Export Market Development Grants. If you want to know more about it, you can read the paper which we've produced, which summarises how the Export Market Development Grant works. This paper is part of ESS BIZTOOLS. And then there's and there's also a list of eligible expenditure. There's 13 main expenditure categories for this grant. So overseas market visits, overseas representation, communication, product samples, trade fairs, marketing consultants, overseas buyers visiting Australia, promotional literature, registration and or insurance of intellectual property. So that's just a checklist to guide you through the process. What we're trying to do here is take people down a chute to determine whether your client is going to be eligible. So we've got some questions which we'll just go through and answer. Have you spent money to seek out, create, demand? Let's say yes, our client's done that. Are you claiming overseas representatives or marketing? Have you maintained documentary evidence? You need to have done that, so we say yes. Are you claiming expenses under the marketing visits? Have you kept records and diaries? Say yes. If you've claimed 2 export market development grants, have you talked to Austrade? Well, we'll say yes, hopefully your client's done that. Where you're looking at a first year claimant, you can in fact have 2 years, this year and the previous year aggregated for a first time claimant. And the question is, will you spend more than $20,000 or will the business? And is the business the principal? So when we answer yes for that, apply now has then came up. If we click on here, we will go to the Austrade website where we'll be able to complete the application form. That takes a little bit of time, so we'll close that now, and the system is updating the eligibility status. So when we started here, we had 20 pending grants. We've now got 19. If the system decided your client was ineligible on a particular grant, it would put them under the ineligible category. It hasn't done that. But under potentially eligible, we've now got 4 grants, and one of them is the Export Market Development Grant. If you want to check again how the system works, you can just click on, and so even though we're now in the potentially eligible grant area, you can go back and read about the grant. And I did something I shouldn't have done then. Just bear with me, thanks. So we're back to where we were, potentially eligible grants. They're summarised there. And you then might say, I now want to produce a report that I can give to our client. So the report would come out with the name of the client. Prepared by would be the name of your accountancy business. The report is dated. It gives a summary to the client to say we've identified 4 potential grants that they might be interested in, and it gives a synopsis on each of those grants and details of the amount of funding that's available. Business Growth Grant, Export Market Development Grant, and Industry Skills Fund. So our suggestion is that you have a conversation with your client, and in a very proactive manner, you produce the grant report to your client to read, and hopefully the client will then agree that a application should be submitted and that you should do that for them. Our suggestion is at this stage you would start a new work in progress file for this work, and you would bill the client for the work that you're going to do for them. So going back to the beginning, I've gone back to the website now. I just want to show you a comment that we have on the right-hand side here. What do our users say? This is written by David Smith, who in 2002 was the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia and is the managing director of Smith Inc. This is a tool that should reside in every accountant's office. Few accountants are aware of the grants available to their clients. It's a minefield of federal, state, local, special purpose grants that seem to change almost daily. ESS Biz Grants has done the hard work in bringing together all this information in an easy-to-use application. If an accountant wants to make a client happy, get them some government money. ESS Biz Grants is the tool that can quickly help accountants quickly assess whether a client might be eligible to access a grant. So that's what David Smith had to say. You can come onto this site. You can enter for a 14-day free trial to trial it with a couple of your clients. You need to enter your details so that the system will allocate you with a password and username to get access. The pricing for a subscription to ESS Biz Grants is $450 per year as an upfront payment plus GST, or $43 per month plus GST of 12 monthly payments over the year. And that will give you a contribution to utilize this site, or access to utilize this site for your office. It's not on an individual author basis or anything like that. It's on a total office basis. So that's how ESS Biz Grants works. I'm just checking again to see if there's any questions. Got no questions. If you think of any questions later on that you would like to ask us, please don't hesitate to send us a email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. In a couple of days' time, we will send you a link to the webinar recording of this webinar, so you can play it back and have a discussion with your colleagues if you wish. And we'll also send you a copy of the paper relative to the Industry Skills Fund. And we would look forward to welcoming each and every one of you as a subscriber to ESS Biz Grants. If you're interested in becoming a subscriber to ESS BizTools, the gold package within ESS BizTools has a free subscription to ESS Biz Grants. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. I look forward to talking to you next time we present webinars. Thank you. Goodbye.